Spain has recently announced that they could be sending some of their Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, specifically some of their older Leopard 2A4 tanks from storage that they have not been using. We will take a look at those Leopards, how would they compare to Russian tanks, see some of their problems, and would they actually perform well.
Do you like to feel safe, protected, hidden? Well, then today's sponsor is just for you. I'm talking of course about Atlas VPN. Using Atlas VPN makes all of your internet traffic travel through an encrypted tunnel. This way it protects you from spying, public Wi-Fi dangers, and hides your IP address and your online activities. Currently, there is an awesome deal where you can get Atlas VPN for 3 years just for $199 a month, with 30 days money-back guaranteed. But Atlas VPN is not just a VPN. It blocks all the malicious links, ads, and trackers, and notifies you when someone is trying to steal your personal data, which is extremely important. Atlas VPN also allows you to protect all of your devices, because it works on Windows, Android, iOS, and macOS, so you can feel safe no matter the device you're using. On top of all of that, it helps save you some money. By changing your region, you can change the pricing of some services because many of them are region dependent, like Netflix for example. Speaking of Netflix, Atlas VPN allows you to unlock region-locked content on Netflix and other streaming services, which you can use to watch your favorite shows, something I have found very useful. Right now, Atlas VPN is running a huge discount. It means you can get a 3-year subscription for just $199 a month, with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Time is running out, so get your deal by clicking the link in the video description below. Thank you Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video.
Spain announced that they could be delivering Leopard 2A4 tanks from their storage to Ukraine. These tanks were obtained from Germany in 1995 as training vehicles before Spain started the production of Leopard 2E tanks. Spain then decided to take these tanks and bought them from Germany, with plans to convert them to recovery vehicles. But because of the lack of funds, that never happened, and they have been sitting in storage for at least a decade. Some sources claim that up to 40 of these tanks could be sent to Ukraine. Now, are these tanks any good? Well, yeah, they are. They are armed with the 120mm L44 gun, which is still used on many tanks today, which gives them the ability to fire some pretty deadly ammunition, such as the Israeli M339 high-explosive multi-purpose projectile that Spain has procured from Israel. This is a programmable high-explosive with instant detonation ability, delayed fuse detonation, and the ability to airburst. This is an extremely deadly projectile which would prove to be very useful. The tank also has a thermal imager for the gunner, which would give it an advantage over many Russian tanks that do not have thermals. But now we come to some problems: the protection. You see, these tanks are old. Based on them having the ammunition supply hatches, they are from the first 4 batches of Leopard 2s made up to 1987. These Leopards have the old armor package, the same one the infamous Turkish Leopard 2 tanks have. The information about export also states that during the 90s and early 2000s, only tanks of the first 5 batches were exported, and the new armor package started to be installed from the 6th batch. So that is a definitive confirmation that the old armor package is present. This armor would protect them against RPGs from the front, that is for sure, but we have seen Turkish Leopards with such armor destroyed by Konkurs ATGMs, which is a very common ATGM used by the Russian military, not to mention anything better like Ataka or Kornet. The side protection is also very problematic. Many Russian and Ukrainian tanks have explosive reactive armor covering pretty much the entirety of the hull sides, while Leopard 2 only has small composites covering just 1/3 of the fighting compartment on the side, to protect against threats coming from 30-degree angles. Even though ERA is pretty useless when hit directly, it still gives the T-series tanks a greater protection angle. Another aspect to consider is safety. Leopard 2 is generally regarded as a safe tank to be in, but that is not entirely true. The ammunition in the hull is not protected and is exposed. A hit there would cause a cook-off or a detonation, which could send the turret flying just like the Russian tanks. The new Leopard 2A7 has extremely good fire extinguishers, and the new propellant for the latest German ammunition is extremely hard to ignite. It can easily survive a direct hit from an RPG. The Leopard 2s sent to Ukraine would not be so lucky, There is no way Germany would send their latest ammunition there. So the safety of those tanks would not be much better than the safety of T-72 tanks. One massive advantage they would have over the Russian tanks, though, is the mobility, especially the reverse speed. The reverse speed of Leopard 2 is around 30 km per hour, while Russian T-72 and T-90 tanks have only 4 km per hour reverse speed, and T-80 tanks have 10. Reverse speed gives the ability to employ more versatile tactics and enables the crew to sometimes get out of hairy situations. The forward mobility wouldn't be much different than some Russian tanks, especially the T-80s, but against older T-72s it would maybe matter. If you're not convinced that the reverse speed matters, Russian media has recently published an interview with a Russian T-80 BVM tanker, where he explains that the high reverse speed of T-80 over T-72 pretty much saved their lives. He explains that because of their poor reverse speed, companies with T-72 tanks suffered extreme losses in urban fighting, while their T-80 company lost only one tank. He also explains that they used their superior mobility and reverse speed to win tank duels, because Ukrainian T-64s also suffer from the reverse speed down syndrome. As he said himself, superiority in reverse speed and the ability to go into the flanks of the enemy gives us the opportunity to never lose these duels at all. So the reverse speed is important in every aspect, be it to survive the fights against infantry or tanks. Just because of their mobility alone, the Leopard 2s could come out on top of Russian tanks, especially the T-72s, and especially the old ones that have no thermals, which are being used more and more. So these tanks are good, but would they actually be good for Ukraine? Well, I don't think they would. It would be much better to send older T-72 tanks to Ukraine, something that other countries have been doing so far. Let me explain why. First reason is training. Ukraine has already developed a doctrine and has trained crews on the Soviet-era tanks. Leopard 2 would be completely different, and it would take a long time for the crews to be properly trained. And I do mean a long time. This needs explanation, and I thought who better to explain this than an actual Leopard 2 tanker. So I asked my friend Tobias, who has served as the Leopard 2A6 and 2A7 tanker for years, to give us all a better insight on why training on those tanks takes such a long time.
Okay, first introduce yourself. What tanks have you served on and for how long?
Well, I served for 3 years in the German army. I served for 1 year on the A6, 1 year on the A6M+, and 1 year on the A7.
Okay, now can you give us some insight on why is it important to train on those tanks for such a long time?
Well, one thing is the commander. The commander training includes normally the driver training, the loader training, and the gunner training. So itself, to become a commander, it normally needs in peacetime conditions like 2 years to become a good commander. Also, normal crew members, when they get trained, they come already in existing companies, in existing platoons, and existing tanks. So if you come with only 3 months of experience on a tank, you come in a tank, for example, with a driver that drives, for example, like 5 years already. So if you lack something like experience, you can ask people inside the tank, and you can even out the experience of the whole tank itself. Having a completely new crew inside the tank will bring many problems, even with the slightest things not working, for example. Mainly you can see this with drivers, because knowing how to drive a Leopard is not how to drive it good. Everyone who can drive a car can drive a Leopard, theoretically. But in the terrain you need experience. While driving in the dirt with a Leopard, you can get dirt, rock, and everything else between the idler, the road wheels, and the sprocket in the track. And a good driver notices it when something is there, and he does a maneuver or a steering to avoid losing the track while driving. Also, a major important thing are like small problems that can occur, but they probably won't occur while 3 months of training or even less time, like problems with intercom, problem with radio, maybe even small problems with the engine that you get to know while serving of several years. Maybe you see it only like once a year or twice a year. So if you have this problem, you can just ask older, more experienced crew what to do without moving all of the tank into a repair shop or a maintenance unit, if something only small needs to be done. Also, what many people don't think about, you don't only have to train the crews inside the tank, but also everyone outside of the tank inside the battalion. For example, the maintenance and the combat maintenance units, they also need to know all the small problems, all the troubles, what causes what, and for example, if the driver comes to him and says, my engine's overheating, so he knows where to look at. And that's stuff you can simulate in like 3 months of training, every possible breakdown of any part inside the tank. It's not possible. You only get this experience over several years, like it takes several years to become a good car mechanic. Same goes for the tank.
If you're interested, I did a full interview with Tobias some time ago. I will leave a link to the video in the description. So now what about logistics, parts and ammunition? Well, those would not have to be received only from Spain. Every country that operates Leopard 2 tanks could deliver a small amount of each, which could last Ukraine enough time. But that is not the problem. Another actual problem with Leopard 2 is the weight. Leopard 2A4 weighs 55 tons, which exceeds the weight for passing on Ukrainian bridges and exceeds the weight the Ukrainian bridge layers can sustain. You see, the recommended weight for the vehicles on the road in Ukraine should not exceed 44 tons, probably because of bridges, and there are a lot of rivers in the eastern part of Ukraine. Of course, exceeding this recommended weight limit by a bit would not be too much of a problem, like the a bit heavier modernizations of both Russian and Ukrainian tanks, which go up to 48 tons. But 55 tons is not feasible. The Ukrainian bridge layers have a maximum load of 50 tons. Leopard 2 also exceeds that. A solution to this would be to obviously not use roads and instead cross the rivers with the western bridge layers. But Spain only has 15 of them, and they have 219 Leopard 2E tanks that they operate. I don't believe they would want to send the very few bridge layers they have. Some countries would maybe agree to that, but that is not very likely. Those vehicles are very valuable and are not very common. Sending Leopard 2s would require sending all support vehicles that come with them. It is not as simple as just loading them up on a train and delivering them. There is a reason why it takes actual years for completely new vehicles to be fully integrated into an army. So what would be a better solution? As I said, give those Leopards to countries that have the comfort of being able to train on them for years and fully adopt them into their military. For example, Poland already operates Leopard 2 tanks. They could send some of their PT-91 tanks since they already sent all of their T-72s, and get Leopard 2s as a replacement, since they would have time to properly integrate them. Ukraine needs something they can use as soon as possible with minimal effort. That is why we saw the T-72s that have already been delivered out on the front lines within a week or two. They need something that can make a difference. Sending them Leopard 2s would do more harm than good. Now, this Spain deal is not yet finalized and is yet to be fully confirmed. There is an issue that Germany might forbid this, because at the end it is them who decide that, since they have the rights on those tanks. And all customers who have procured Leopard tanks, or any parts for different tanks from Germany, need their permission to send those tanks to someone else, be it as a land lease or a sale. That would be all. Thank you all for watching, and thank you Tobias for your insight and helping me out with the video. I will link his YouTube channel in the description, so go give him some love. If you like my content, you can support me on Patreon, and I'll see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.